Fionna and Cake is back again this week with 2 new episodes that change the entire history of Adventure Time, and even to tie up old loose ends in the plot too. But before we get into that, make sure you all hit the like and subscribe to the channel for all things Adventure Time. And to start things off, all you Marceline simps are gonna absolutely love the series' 7th episode, The Star, in which we are given a glimpse into a world where Marceline is not raised by Simon, who instead ends up unaliving in this timeline, and is rather picked up and ends up being raised by the Vampire King, which upon first glance is part of the reason we expect this world to be so wasted, you know, since Marcy doesn't end up wiping out all the vampires in this timeline. Then we see our main characters, Fionna, Cake, and Simon, stumbling across this universe with their dimension hopping remote, and almost immediately running into 3 extremely terrifying vampires, who Cake seems to be way less afraid of than Jake is. So while Fionna and Simon are struggling to put their work in, Cake almost immediately comes in to save the day and wipes out all the vampires by herself. Pretty badass if you ask me. Then, as it appears they're going to get ambushed, our trio are immediately saved by this reality's version of Princess Bubblegum, who also goes by Bonnie. And if you thought the Fallout post-apocalyptic setting wasn't that apparent in the Farm World universe, then you should definitely be able to see it here. I mean, everything from the dead sun graffiti on the wall to the environment itself, this just screams wasteland. But Bonnie ends up giving some quick exposition explaining that the vampires are the head of this world now, and that some mysterious being known as the Star has been the source of their problem. Meanwhile, back in Fionna and Cake's main universe, we are given another glimpse to the lives of Bubblegum's male counterpart Gary, along with Marceline, as the two attend a blood drive hosted by Marceline's mom. And now that we've all seen the color of both the human versions of Marceline's parents, I really hope that'll be enough for you idiots to stop leaving comments on my vids about blackwashing. Then we see the inside of Vampire World Bonnie's tank, in which we see the 2 other members of her collective are none other than this reality's Huntress Wizard and Martin Mertens, Finn's dad, who actually appears to be not that bad of a guy in this verse. We even get to see him commit to some long lost father and son interactions that our Finn never got to have, but at least baby Finn's chilling. Then we see the Scarab pay a visit to Prismo, checking on the damage being done by Fionna and Cake before being brought to speak in front of a mysterious boss who we have yet to see. And can we just talk about the design of the female Hudson Abadir? I mean, they genuinely outdid themselves with this. But just like our vampire queen Marceline ain't feeling dude like that. And can we just take a minute to talk about how dark this vampire world really is? I mean, Billy's corpse is literally just sitting there. Like, this is wild. Then Fionna tries to play hero and ends up getting Martin Mertens clapped, and we find out that this mysterious star figure is none other than this reality's version of Marceline, who is now incredibly freaking evil due to not having the positive influence of Simon and being raised by the Vampire King in his place. And just in case you were wondering how evil, she literally drinks Finn's dad. And also, this could totally be a pet peeve of mine, but why does Fionna not react to all the lives that she takes? In this episode, we do see her grieve over the Winter King and the ice people that she whacks accidentally. But when it comes to the alternate version of herself, like Farm World Finn or her alternate universe dad, she didn't really seem to care all that much. But evil Marceline retreats, and the group retreat after deciding that Fionna and Cake will take Martin's place. Then Marceline's mom tries to force him to take over the family's business, but Gary ain't having all that and tells her off in front of everybody, causing him to potentially miss out on some lucrative business deals for his bakery. Meanwhile, our main gang are literally trying to commit a mass extinction event against some vampires, planning on nuking where they sleep with a bunch of garlic bombs and forcing them all out into the sun. We get another glimpse into this Marceline while she's sitting talking with her minions, and I don't know about y'all, but I personally find her hotter like this. But Simon doesn't like the fact that this is how his little girl turned out. Then they successfully lead all the vampires outside, but the Huntress Wizard does not survive their attempt to assassinate the Vampire King. And Bonnie and Marceline have one final fight of lovers as our trio try to take the crown from the Vampire King. Simon almost gets clapped for questioning the Vampire King's parenting, but honestly, the Vampire King seemed like he's enjoying the fight between Marceline and Bonnie, so can you really blame him? Then Cake attempts to steal the crown from the Vampire King while he's distracted, but Fionna doesn't let her do it. She don't think Cake got that dog in her. And our trio then teleport into the next dimension while this reality's Bubbleline decide to go out together. How poetic. And Marceline and Gary make out too. Honestly, that's a pretty lit episode right there if you ask me. I'm sure a lot of us have wondered what the Adventure Time world would be like if the vampires were never defeated. Our version of Marceline hunted them all to extinction, and based upon how this other reality turned out, that was a good thing. I also like how we're seeing Fionna be emotionally impacted by how her and Cake are affecting other realities. I think adding that depth to Fiona's character is exactly what the series needs in order to keep showing new viewers how compelling and great it genuinely is. That dive into Fiona's emotional depth comes in the series' following episode, Jerry. Now this one I think a lot of the fans were waiting for, as this appears to be where many of the story plot lines come to a resolve, as it starts with our main trio wandering through a completely barren dimension that seems completely devoid of any life at all. No candy or ice kingdom, just sand and hollow chunks of earth. The dimension hopping remote is now destroyed, by the way, which I totally forgot to mention, and now Fionna and Cake are all mad mad at each other because Cake doesn't feel like Fionna trusts her enough to do what they need to. Really, Cake just believes herself to be more capable than Fionna does, and Fionna's starting to feel pretty upset about that. So to cheer her up, Simon begins to tell her the story of how he met his beloved wife Betty. And I actually hadn't cried watching Fionna and Cake up to this point, surprisingly. But no, if you're like me, you're probably not going to get through this episode without a couple waterworks, because this origin story between Simon and his beloved wife is genuinely one of the most beautiful parts of the entire series thus far. I can't tell if it's just how nerdy these two are, but something about their love story is so adorable. And seeing Simon talk about her is genuinely when we've seen him at his happiest. Then Cake stumbles across this reality's version of the treehouse and finds BMO as the only thing left inside. There is a note from Finn that says he'll be right back, but we can presume that that day never happened. BMO tells our gang he can take him to this reality's version of Princess Bubblegum, who can fix the dimension hopping remote. And upon arriving at the Candy Kingdom, they begin to realize that the only thing that appears to be left of Princess Bubblegum is her belongings. So BMO decides he'll fix the remote himself, and I know this is gonna be so hard to hear, but BMO literally fries himself trying to fix it, y'all. I know, RIP BMO. But before this reality's BMO passed, he did an awful lot of talking about some guy named Jerry. So Fionna and Cake feel like they have to go find this Jerry guy and tell him that BMO is no longer with them. And upon stumbling upon his lair, they quickly find out that this Jerry was none other than the Lich. And we are seeing the reality the Lich wished for, where he brought extinction to all life. We see him use his terrifying power on Simon, Fionna, and Cake. Could this have something to do with Betty being gold? Then the Scarab asks God for permission to clap Fionna's universe, which God grants. And just as the Scarab appears and Fionna and Cake hop back into Simon's head, Simon thinks about Betty before placing upon the crown and seemingly opens up a portal to gold. That was absolutely crazy. I honestly don't even know where to start with that. I think it was really amazing foreshadowing way earlier on in the season, where we see Simon accidentally summon Fionna and Cake by attempting the same exact ritual to summon his wife Betty. So it just makes perfect sense that when he does the ritual in order to save Fionna, that this time around it would end up having his original intended result of him returning to Betty. But that doesn't get rid of the problem of the Scarab, nor does it tell us exactly what will end up happening when Fionna and Cake return to their original world. Will everyone they've come to know and love cease to exist? Maybe there could end up being a solution that involves Betty Gold helping them out. I honestly have no idea what's gonna happen next. I just hope that Simon is able to get the happy ending he deserves. It doesn't seem that likely looking upon everything that's happening, but I'm gonna try to hold out that faith that everyone can get their happy ending. What did you think of this week's new episode? And what do you feel is most likely to happen next week when we get the final 2 episodes of the first season? I've had a lot of fun covering all these new chapters of Adventure Time with all of you, and make sure you leave a like and a comment on this video if you want a season 2. Remember to also show the series some love by watching it on Max, y'all. Thank you for watching the video. I love you, I appreciate you all. Sun God signing off.
I come in clutch like a genie. Don't talk unless you need me. You talk too much, you need it. All of my bitches look like models, she in love with me. When we link, it's flashing lights and cameras, got a blammer.